I was shocked when my parents announced that my mother was pregnant again. My whole life, they had insisted that I would be their only child, mainly due to the high costs of childcare and my mother's devotion to her career. My parents were never very involved or attentive, and we rarely did anything together as a family. Now, they expected me to take on significant responsibilities to care for my new sibling. When my parents sat me down and told me their plan for me to watch the baby for several hours after school each day, quit my extracurricular activities, and stay home during the summer to care for the baby, I refused outright. I told them that as the child in the family, my role was not to parent my new sibling. They reacted with anger and disappointment, telling me I was being selfish and irresponsible. I realized I needed to take action to avoid being trapped in the role of a co-parent. After speaking to my guidance counselor, I found that I could graduate high school early by December if I continued to keep up my good grades. Since I would turn 17 soon, this seemed like the best option to gain my independence as soon as possible. When I told my parents about my plan, they were upset and tried to convince me that I would regret missing out on the rest of high school and that I wouldn't be a good sister if I wasn't involved in the baby's life. However, I stood firm in my decision. I told them again that I am still a child, and parenting is their responsibility, not mine. No matter how much they tried to make me feel guilty, I knew that taking care of a new baby full-time was not what I wanted or needed in my own life at this stage. Graduating early and moving out seemed to be the only way I could enforce proper boundaries and avoid having my youth cut short by the burden of responsibilities that were not meant to be mine. My parents would have to find another solution that did not involve using their teenage daughter as free childcare. While it was a difficult situation, I was determined to stand up for myself and my own future. I think it does not seem that the daughter is the asshole here, NTA. Her reasons for refusing to take on essentially full-time childcare responsibilities for her new sibling seem justified. 1. She is still a child herself, only 16 years old, and parenting duties should not be forced upon her at this stage in her life. 2. Caring for an infant is an enormous responsibility that would require her to give up her own activities, social life, and potentially future goals plans. This is not fair to ask of a teenage child. 3. Her parents made the choice to have another baby, so childcare responsibilities are ultimately up to them, not their daughter. They cannot expect her to sacrifice her youth to solve the problems they created. 4. Their hands-off, uninvolved parenting style thus far suggests they would likely continue to place most responsibilities on their daughter, rather than make appropriate sacrifices themselves. 5. Graduating high school early seems like a reasonable solution to establish proper boundaries and ensure she is not taken advantage of. She deserves to live her own life, not just serve as free labor. The parents, on the other hand, seem to be acting as the assholes in this situation, YTA. By 1. Expecting their teenage daughter to take on the majority of childcare simply for their own convenience. 2. Trying to manipulate and guilt her into complying with their unreasonable demands. 3. Not recognizing or respecting her own needs and desires in favor of their responsibilities as parents. 4. Failing to understand why their daughter would refuse and see her as selfish rather than standing up for herself appropriately. If you want to hear more stories, please subscribe my channel. Story 2. AITA for telling my wife she's an idiot. My name is John. I'm 43 years old, and I'm a stay-at-home dad. My wife Sarah, 36, works as a museum curator and archivist. We have twin 15-year-old daughters named Eve and Mary. Eve and Mary look nearly identical to most people who don't know them well. Eve has been dating a boy named Joseph from her physics class. Joseph comes from a difficult family situation, so he has been spending a lot of time at our house recently. We set up the guest room for him and treat him like part of the family. Joseph also helps out with chores around the house occasionally. With Eve out of town for a cheerleading event, Joseph came over to help me work on my motorcycle. While I went inside briefly, Joseph left suddenly before I came back out. When I asked Mary where Joseph went, she claimed he just decided to go home. However, when I texted Joseph to check on him, he told me Mary had been insulting Eve and saying she didn't deserve to date him. I had a serious talk with Mary explaining why she couldn't try to sabotage her sister's relationship. I told her that high school relationships are usually short-lived anyway, so she should let Eve enjoy the time she has with Joseph instead of hurting herself and others. Mary complained to Sarah that I told her she would never be happy and that I only cared about Eve. When Sarah confronted me angrily, I explained the full situation. I pointed out that if Sarah didn't realize Mary and Eve were fighting over the same boy, she was being foolish. Now Sarah is upset that I called her foolish. I apologized, explaining that I meant it more as a joke. Still, the situation is complicated, and I'm worried about managing the conflict between our daughters and maintaining peace in our household. I would say the OP is not completely the asshole here, but could have handled some things better. OP was right to have a serious talk with Mary about sabotaging her sister's relationship. That kind of behavior can be very damaging and needed to be addressed. However, OP should not have called his wife foolish or an idiot, even if meant jokingly. That was disrespectful and hurtful, and understandably upset his wife. He was right to apologize for that comment. The situation with the daughters fighting over the same boy and causing drama is complicated, and OP and his wife need to present a united front in managing it. Calling names will only make things worse. OP meant well in taking Joseph under his wing, but needs to be careful not to show favoritism between the daughters. He should have a talk with Eve as well about being sensitive to her sister's feelings, and both girls could benefit from counseling or mediation. The comment that high school relationships don't last anyway was dismissive of Eve's relationship and feelings. OP should be more supportive of his daughter's happiness. So in summary, while OP had good intentions, his execution was flawed at times. With some better communication, counseling, and presenting a united front with his wife, he has a chance to turn this complicated situation around and support both of his daughters through this challenging time. But he needs to be very careful with his words and show equal love and understanding to both girls. If you want to hear more stories, please subscribe my channel. Story 3. AITA for ignoring my soon-to-be stepmom when she kept calling me by the wrong name. My name is Andy. Just Andy. I was named after my late grandfather, Andrew, who passed away just days before my mother found out she was pregnant with me. My parents wanted to honor him but didn't like the name Andrea, the feminine version of Andrew, so they named me Andy. I've always loved my unique name. My parents divorced when I was 8 years old. I lived primarily with my mother but visited my father every other weekend, as well as on holidays. 3 years ago, my dad started dating Kate, who he is now engaged to. When Kate and I first met, she incorrectly assumed my full name was Andrea. I corrected her and told her my name is just Andy. However, she continued to call me Andrea. I told my mom about it and she said to just ignore Kate until she called me by the right name. Last weekend, I was visiting my dad and Kate's family. Kate kept calling out for Andrea and I ignored her, as my mom suggested. Kate got angry and confronted me, asking why I was ignoring her. I told her again that Andrea is not my name. Her father and brother were surprised, saying they thought Andrea was just my nickname. I clarified that my legal name is Andy. They then asked Kate why she kept calling me Andrea. Kate got upset, calling me a brat for embarrassing her. She said I knew who she meant and that I should have just gone along with it, but I was being rude. While I can See why the confusion may have initially happened. Kate has known my real name for years now. I don't feel that I was in the wrong for correcting her and her family. My name is a meaningful part of my identity, a connection to my late grandfather. I hope that in the future, Kate will respect me enough to call me by the right name, Andy. Overall, this was an awkward and frustrating experience, but I'm glad the truth is now clear to Kate's family. I think this was an important moment of standing up for myself, even if Kate disagrees. I would say no. OP, Andy, is NTA in this situation. Here are my reasons why. 1. Kate has known for years that Andy's real name is Andy, not Andrea. Yet she continues to call Andy the wrong name, despite repeated corrections. This shows a lack of respect for Andy and her identity. 2. Andy's name was specifically chosen by her parents to honor her late grandfather. It has sentimental meaning, so Andy understandably wants people to call her by the correct name. 3. When the confusion came up with Kate's family, Andy politely clarified that her name is Andy, not Andrea. She did not do this in a rude or bratty way. She simply stated the facts to avoid further incorrect references. 4. Kate was embarrassed by her own mistake, but instead of apologizing, she lashed out at Andy and called her a brat. This was unfair and unjustified. Andy did nothing wrong by clarifying her own name. 5. Andy has shown patience in repeatedly reminding Kate of her real name over the years. The frustration has built up due to Kate's refusal to change, despite knowing the truth. Andy's reaction at this latest event seems entirely understandable in context. In summary, Kate is at fault here for knowingly and repeatedly calling Andy by the wrong name. Andy has every right to insist on being called Andy. She handled the situation appropriately and was within reason to feel frustrated with Kate's behavior and comments. Overall, Kate owes Andy an apology for the disrespect and embarrassment. Andy, on the other hand, responded reasonably by standing up for herself. She is NTA. If you want to hear more stories, please subscribe my channel. If there are any stories you want me to cover, send me an email and I will be happy to check it out.